Our first review of the day is going to be for an anime called dandadan there. So dandadan. So people bear with me a little bit. This is going to sound a little wild, a little crazy. You're gonna maybe gonna think I'm making the shit up as I go. But so the premise here of dandadan is you got two characters. You got Momo and you got Akarin there, who his real name is Ken, but the character Momo calls him Akarin because of he's very much into the occult. He's very much belief there of UFOs. He believes in aliens. She believes in spirits and ghosts and demons of the such there. So both their kind of worlds kind of both converge there. One night they investigating something and realize, well, damn, both exist. Both demons and aliens exist. The primary goal of these aliens is they want to steal for lack of banana there, which is both in the literal sense there, well, more of the metaphorical sense of man's pride, his manhood
Mhm.
there. They want to
Mhm.
steal that for what exact purpose, and also with the ghosts and demons there, they haunt this world, causing a bunch of damage. And you see that they both have abilities. The girl, she has psychic powers that she's able to get there. And then the boy also, he gets possessed by one of the demons when they go investigating. And so it's a lot of them facing a lot of these different things of aliens, of ghosts in this world, as well as also it has a blend of romantic comedy aspect of it because these two people who are kind of somewhat outcast there kind of converge and meet each other and kind of begin a burgeoning relationship with that. But like I said, this was, a breakout show of 2024 for anime. A lot of people listed it as one of their favorite animes of 2024. Um, would you also agree with that? Is it one of your favorite animes of 2024?
It's in my top 5 from last year, but it's not in my top 3.
Okay. And what will be
It
your top three there?
Mashal, Master of Magic, Chainsaw Man, and Solo Leveling.
Okay. So it'll be your top. So what's your four? Would it be
It'll probably be Down the Dawn. Probably be Down the Dawn.
in your fifth one?
Ooh, last year, oh, it's called Remonster. Re
Okay.
semicolon monster. Yeah.
All right. All right. And with it, so what are your thoughts on Don to Don there, John?
Overall, I loved just about everything about it until that final episode. The finale was trying too hard to leave it on a cliffhanger, and it really left us, I feel like, really underwhelmed for a conclusion to a season. But overall, it was great. I love the comedy aspect of it. The graphics and animation were great. The soundtrack is great. The overall story is a little goofy, but it's also like trying to take off from a serious tone of something that's going on because they use like certain real lore. Like Turbo Granny was a real story about like a lady that was trying to save the spirits of a girl that was getting raped in that. I mean, essayed in that tunnel. So like it's kind of like okay, I'm putting a goofier, lighter tone on a serious situation that actually occurred. And I kind of appreciated that. Like I like when you could lightly or comically like spread information. It was a great overall story. Only thing I will say, certain times they get a little iffy with the reproductive organs of the main character of Okoro because it's just like first he lost his banana, then he lost the accessories, and it's like oh my god, like you just can't catch a break, and all while you're chasing the girl of your dreams, and you can't even have your accessories on you. It's just it's all bad. It's all bad.
Uh, um, yeah. So he loses the family jewels there. So it kind of is almost like a little bit of a treasure hunt for him to get back his materials there that he
Yeah.
has. So like I said, the show does a lot of comedy in it, does a lot of rom com stuff in it. I haven't seen a whole lot of comedy anime shows, and I would say this is kinda one of the first times I've actually laughed in, watching one of the, anime. I think a lot of humor in anime, there's humorous moments, but I won't say I ever, like, laugh really too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's characters who are meant to be comedic relief, in shows there. Usually how they play a lot of the comedic relief with characters in anime feels like it's a lot of very slapstick kind of humor, very, very over exaggerated. Also, a lot of it, also, you have the stereotypical, horny character in a lot of anime
Mhm. Mhm.
there. And that's sometimes even the main character of it. And here, the kind of a lot of personality with the main character, who is a boy. He's, shy guy, doesn't have really many friends there, sticks to just reading about the UFOs, the alien things. And then when he actually runs into Momo who's actually interested in, seems to have interest in, things that he's talking about, there's instant connection there, which is there. So it's very sweet. I think you would say that. What did you think about the relationship between the two characters?
I feel like it's one of those what I wish high school was really like dynamics because in real life the guys that like the UFOs and aliens we didn't really be too much friendly with them because they were on a different type of time. But to catch that type of girl in that type of field, who grandmother is super famous psychic and she had psychic powers but didn't know and like all that, it was like a great innocent little connection. I really liked it. Like overall, I feel like that's one of my favorite. Um, I guess you could say like romances that's not a romance in anime right now that I'm watching. Like it's probably my top two because it was just a great connection. And I like how like they neither one of them will say it, like they don't want to acknowledge their feelings for each other. But subconsciously, like when they talking to themselves, they always be like, "Well, what if he's upset, or what if she thinks this?" And then it just adds so much to the dynamic of when they finally get together and finally acknowledge how they feel. It's gonna make that moment so much more impactful.
Yeah. And have you read the manga?
Up to the next season.
Okay, and they did announce, a second season. It's coming pretty early.
Mhm.
It's gonna be coming this year. I believe they said it's
Mhm.
gonna drop in October, I
Mhm.
think of, this year. Oh, actually, no, they said the second season is set to premiere in July.
Okay.
So it is set to premiere in July. So it's pretty early that it's gonna be coming up, this second season. Does that give you any worry, any fear at all? Um
Um. No, I just feel like that means that they were already working on it. When the first one premiered, and they just were trying to give us a break so it's not an overload. Like like once the hype starts to die down a little bit, and then we come back in July with the second season, it'll go right back to that peak ceiling that it was at. Because I feel like the hardest part of them trying to top what they did in the first season, to be honest, is the theme song. That opening theme is crazy. To top that for a season two, you're gonna have to work with some great musicians to really put something together because that's what everybody's gonna wait for. That the first episode is not gonna be as busting if they don't have the a great theme.
Mm. And Sage, how's it going? Sage is here. Sage from Rated M for Immaturity there. Josh, you met Sage before.
For sure. It's
Oh
good to
yeah.
have Sage. Good
He's
to
How
see
you
been on
doing,
you
man?
again. Good, good.
plenty of reviews there. And yeah, everybody also talking about this theme. So I'll play a little bit. I'll play about 30 seconds of it. A lot of people love this theme song here.
For sure.
Do you think it's one of the best anime theme songs we've had in a while there? Last 5 years
It's in my top three. It's
of
in
all
my
time?
top three. Yeah. No, not all time. Like recent history. Recent
Okay, recent.
history.
Would you agree with
Yeah.
that?
It's
Stan?
Yeah, I think it's the best one from this year for me. I can't think of
you
anything
got
else that really
you got this
competes.
one over Mash, the Bling Bling Born.
I haven't watched that show really
Okay.
yet,
All right.
but
Okay.
I do know that it's the same band that did that song that did this
Yep.
song.
Yep.
I'm sure I would like that one too if I heard it.
Yeah. So
But
that's my number one. That one got it was the most streamed anime intro of last year. It had like 1.3 billion streams. It was the Marshall season two opening.
mhm. Let me play a little bit of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bop for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It makes
Yeah.
you move for sure.
And if you ever like look up the English dub, like it's not the exact same, but you kind of grasp what the actual words are. So when you listen to the Japanese dub again, you can kind of like I ain't gonna say follow, but like you know what I'm saying. You kind of keep track of where the song is going.
Sage. You want to jump in, give your thoughts on
Yeah,
Dandadan there?
I had my earbud in, so I heard it. You don't have to catch me up on anything. I was listening to to the whole
Okay.
conversation before. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed the show. I got to see the first three episodes in theaters back in early September. And that added some maybe extra special to it, just getting to see it on the big screen like that. So I was super primed to go into the rest of the season. I think a lot of this just works really well. The characters, I think, have a great dynamic with each other. I mean, I'm not a rom-com guy at all, but I think one, this has several different genres melded together. That helps, right? That it's not just a rom-com. But
Hmm.
even the parts of it that are focused on that, I think you still have a genuinely rich character dynamic here. Like here's an example too. In I think it's episode 8, there's like a very almost cliched rom-com style misunderstanding between the two characters, but they resolve it by episode 9 by actually communicating with each other. Like
Hmm.
think about how many movies like that you've seen where like the entire plot happens because they just won't talk to each other. So as a rom-com, this is doing it better than most, I think, because there's like legitimate communication and it doesn't just feel like they're contriving problems for the sake of it. There's just actually something really genuine about the way they talk to each other. Um, the one big negative I will throw out there is I think the first episode with the alien scene, I think just some of the way that it's the camera angles are placed and some of that's I think a little gross. And I've seen other people have a bit of a hard time with it. It's not even what's happening. It's just like the camera angles that they're showing it from just feels a little gratuitous and unnecessary. But it's really the only time it does it in the whole show. It's just that one time. So if you can watch through that, I think the show maintains a level of just fun pretty much
Hmm.
throughout the whole rest of the thing. And
Hmm.
and also just the animation here, I think is spectacular. It's vibrant. The colors are really amazing consistently. It's really fluid. I talked about on the show before, but Science Saru, stuff like Devilman, stuff like Scott Pilgrim Takes Off. This is like a, in the Japanese anime industry, it is a studio that is unique in terms of not overworking its animators and overworking its staff. So like they were done animating this whole season in like August, and they've been working on season 2 since then, which is why you were not like they were not just barely finishing an episode hours before it was airing on TV, like you know, Jujutsu Kaisen or Attack on Titan or like name any other big anime. Like you're
Hmm.
always hearing about overworking happening. Um, and so it's just you see how great the art is when you allow your animators the time to completely finish their job and not be stressed out and pulling their hair out due to how overworked they are.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, the
Agreed.
animation is really good. A lot of the fight sequences, I think, are really well done there, because they're fighting all these different interesting creatures and supernatural entities there that they kind of face off against with that. So yeah, that's always makes for kind of a good time. This and the
And the way
casting.
the color shifts during the fights too.
Oh yeah, that also looks good. You talking about the scene where they're fighting, like when the demon comes to their actual home.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's any of the big fights. I mean, in the
Yeah.
first episode, there's the hard red kind of shift that it does over everything. In the second
Hmm.
episode, it's like all black and white. In the fourth episode, it does this like pink light that kind of comes over the area that they're in. It's almost like the domain of whatever demon like has like a
Hmm.
color associated with it that like takes over the environment in
Yeah.
whichever, sequence they're in.
Mhm.
Really, it sets kind of like the mood or the tone for the scene. It's kind of like you got to pay attention to what's going on. Like when they were at the school and the water shark demon thing was chasing
Mm.
the girl, and it kind of like grayed out a little bit, and she was like in her head, and we were like, okay, it's kind of like we're in her head with her because everything's grayed out. It's not like we're present in the scene at that moment.
And could I piggyback onto what Josh just said too? How amazing is it that they didn't just stop at demons and aliens, but they're like, let's do like cryptids like the Loch Ness
Hmm.
monster too. Like let's
Hmm.
just throw every single like urban legend in at the same time.
Shout out to Nessie. Shout out to Nessie.
Waiting for Bigfoot in season 2.
But yeah, I mean, it's a lot. I mean, they introduced this crazy concept in the very first episode of the show. They introduce you to aliens, to these demons, to the characters getting powers. You know what I mean? Do you think it's a little overwhelming? Or do you think they should have staggered it out a bit, or do you think that it's
I
fine, kind of throwing people?
I mean, I think it could be overwhelming, but I think that they did a good enough job with the pacing because you get like as far as like exposition goes, you get like a good kind of sense of what these things are they're talking about before you see them, so that when you see them, it's very easy to go like, oh yeah, this is this thing, this is that thing. So I think I think it worked. I didn't think it was too much at once. And they saved the cryptids for a few episodes in. That and as a show overall, across the first season, like there's a little bit of the alien stuff, but it's really only like two episodes that stuff pops in. It's like you almost kind of get a whole season just with demon stuff, like the yokai stuff. And then I assume, and I haven't really read the book, but I assume then, as we go, maybe season two will be like a little more aliens. They'll bring it in a little bit more. Even though they establish both right away, I think they very smartly choose to only focus on one for the majority of the first episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah. What say you there?
It's gonna to answer that question, it's gonna be about the same. The focus is the demons. The so it's kind of like you gotta think about it like a well balanced meal. Like the demon stuff is the meat, the alien stuff is the vegetables, and like the cryptids and the regular humans and the possession, all that is like your dessert starch drink. You know what I'm saying? So like the we're still here for the meat, but they're giving us other stuff just to sample on, so we're not oversaturated with demons. Because now it becomes a demon anime, and that's not. I feel like that's not the goal that they're trying to push. So it's like if we keep giving you these other concepts that matter, you'll stay focused on the whole picture, which is the relationship with the characters. I feel like.
Mm, okay. And besides the two lead characters that you have, I talked about
Hmm.
Momo, I talked about Ken there. There's also the sexy grandma that you got in this as well, who's Momo's grandmother there, who's
Hmm.
blowing up the internet. I think I would say there. Uh,
Gil for the year.
Gift of the year there. It's gonna be this is how Aunt May is gonna look in the new Spider-Man movie when that comes out. But yeah, Seiko is her name there. I think you said, or Psycho there.
Seiko.
Psycho.
Seiko.
Yeah, you're close. You're close enough.
Yeah. Yeah. What did you think about the cast of characters in this show besides the 2 leads? Do you think it's a great kind of well-rounded cast of characters that you have?
I
It's
feel like we're
just
still being introduced to them.
yeah.
Like
That's
even
how I
by the
feel
end of the
about
season, we don't like
it.
fully know them all super well as far as like the ensemble goes. I think we're like
The
still just getting introduced to new members, even in the last
yeah.
episode.
The group isn't gonna really be assembled until the end of season two. So like that's like it's like imagine if like the Scooby Doo gang was just starting and Freddie met Daphne. Like we're not to where we got the rest of them yet. We're just at the core group.
Yeah.
I
And
think it's a good
so
start though.
Yeah, for sure. It's a great start. I love all the casting, but like I feel like the only trope that's missing is like one of those big dumb brute characters that's like just strong, hard body. Like we don't have nobody that's just OP, just a brick. You know what I'm saying? One of those brick wall characters. But every other trope is the dumb pretty boy jock with the soccer boy that was introduced at the end, the shy introvert main character, the pretty girl that falls for a nerd unintentionally, the sexy white hair character, which is the granny. And then we got the comedic relief and turbo granny now that she's in the cat body. She's in the kitten statue. We're well versed in diversity of characters, and I feel like it's once the next group is introduced, it's going to be like a nice smoothie, pretty much.
yeah. And you have Arya here, Arya.
Yeah,
Uh
I'm not too hot on her. I won't lie.
Yeah, so she comes in, she joins the crew. She learns that she has psychic abilities there, or some type of like supernatural abilities where she can actually communicate with ghosts and talk to them. And it leads into a really great episode, episode 8. It leads into a really great episode there. So she starts off like she's the very popular girl at school. She's the Regina George of the school there, very popular, but she's also very bitchy. Um, and she actually joins the crew there because of her abilities, but she kind of starts off, and then even she starts to kind of fall for the Ken character there. So it's kind of like he's in comic book terms, it's like Peter Parker with Mary Jane and Gwen Stacy a little bit. It's like kind of or Mary Jane and Black Cat. It's like a love triangle going on.
Hmm.
And Betty Brant and Liz Allen, and
Yeah, like, it's like this one nerd is getting all these hot women falling for him just out of nowhere. Why aren't you so hot on her there?
One, so like to kind of like go to her story, she found a golden ball and just decided that God sent it to her and that it was just a divine message. Like, you're not Moses. Like, slow down. And then second, like the way that they like possessed her body with that spirit that had been chasing her and thought it was her mom and all of that went on, it was like, okay, that was cool, but like this obsession that she's a demon lord trying to take over the world is crazy when they just saved your life. Like, you gotta let this go. You gotta let that hurt go. And then you're gonna try to take her man right after you tell that that's her slave, or well, she say a familiar. I was just like, all right, we gotta move forward. I gotta, she gotta get off the screen. It was making me mad. I don't like. I just saved your life. Be grateful. Be grateful.
Uh, you have any character that's weak for you there, Sage?
um, I mean, like, I guess I could say her as well, but at the same time, I think she's intentionally made to be unlikable so that she has a place to grow as a character. It's just that we're not very far
There
into
yet,
that arc yet, so we
for
haven't
sure.
seen the transformation. But I do think you get little bits, little hints at it. Like there's a scene where she and Momo talk on like the picnic table outside, and she admits that she's the one that made up a rumor about her at one point. So you see the change starting to happen. So I think she's a character that will grow a lot, but she definitely is irritating in certain ways right
For
now
sure.
for sure.
Mm, okay.
I almost did a backflip when she dumped that bucket on her head off the lockers. I was so excited. I
Well,
was
and
ready.
then I think similarly, Gigi, who's introduced only in the last couple episodes, during several of his scenes, I was like, would this ADHD motherfucker just sit down and stop making noise, please?
Please, please. He was so irritated. He was like a little brother that's like that you got like by
Yes,
like 8 years, and he's just irritating. Everything about him is just irritating.
total little brother energy. And I mean, I think he will also grow too. I
Yeah.
think it's done on purpose, but it's just that because we're right at the beginning,
Hmm.
these
And
characters are
that's what I
yeah.
was saying about the finale, right? So the literal like next panel is him like in his power that he has. If they would have just showed that for the finale, all of that about him being irritating would have been brushed away because
Sure.
we just found out that he has something. We don't know what it is, but he has something, and we're waiting for season two to see it. But they stopped it before that happened, and I was just so confused, so confused.
Based on how quickly season two is coming out, because it's only July of
Mm-hmm.
2025 that's coming out. I honestly think that the plan was that these were going to be two halves of one season rather than a
Mm-hmm.
season one and a season two, and that
Mm-hmm.
the originally the gap between airing might have been shorter, and so that might be why that's where they decided to leave it off. But
Okay.
then behind the scenes, things changed. It's we need a little more time. All right, let's
Yeah.
label it season two. I think that might be part of why that was done that way. But I do agree that I haven't really read much of the book, but I do know that that's not like the last page of a chapter. That's
For
like
sure.
halfway through a single chapter that they kind of cliffhanger it.
Mm, yeah. So like I said, yeah, we talked about it. Season two is coming up pretty soon there with this, and I can't wait for it. I think this season, I see why it's kind of one of the breakout anime shows there of 2024. How fun it is, how it's able to blend all these elements together, with the action, with the comedy, with the even horror there, with the supernatural, the sci-fi aspect of it, and also talked about this with Sage there, but also it feels like it's also, embracing the tropes of the anime and kind of making fun of that there, being very satirical in that way of how
Mm-hmm.
ridiculous anime can be at times. And I think it works there and succeeds at that level. The characters here, a lot of fun to watch them, and the relationship between the two leads there. It even put a smile on my face. It warmed my cold heart in this cold January here. The relationship they have, how sweet they are together. They even warmed Sage's cold heart. He usually hates people and hates love, but it even made him believe in it with this. So I mean that thinks you should just give it a high score just based on that. Um, and yeah, just to see the crazy action sequences in this, the kind of different personalities had, like when Ken turns, he has full throttle mode as he's called. You see here in the trailer there. It's basically like when Urkel turns into Stevan there. It's kind of like that where he turns into like a badass there, and he's all cool and nonchalant. That's
The
kind of
fact
what.
that it makes him so depressed too is such a great way of denying like the anime trope of the nerdy character becoming cool, because it's like it's almost like it's keeping him from being too cool by giving him this like
Mhm.
downer personality too.
Yeah. So I love that. I love a lot of aspects of that. You gonna say something, Joe?
I think when he turns into the demon form, he turns into her type, like the guy that she was trying to describe that has the name that he actually has. When he
Like the
turns into the
movie
demon
star.
form, yeah, like that's the drippy clothes, the personality, the laid back, the don't care, nonchalant energy. Like that's what she was describing, and I feel like that's when he is the. I think it's Kentaku, like his real name. Um,
Oh,
and
Takakura.
yeah, Takakura, right? And that's when he fits that type, and I feel like at some point we're gonna get to a point where she's gonna acknowledge that fact because he's gonna realize like, okay, she likes me more in that form, and that's what's gonna make him like continue to do this. Like that's what's gonna be his driving force. If I can win her over because I'm strong in that form, I can win her over, and I won. Because we just seen him fighting with Gigi, like, oh, I'm finna do 1,000 push-ups so I can get strong enough to protect her. But in reality, all you gotta do is pull the hood down, and it's showtime.
Mm. So do you think like the form that he creates when he goes in full throttle mode? Do you think that's based on, like you said, his kind of wanting to be her type, or do you think that's okay?
Subconsciously, because before he got that power, like literally we could say moments before he got that power, when they were on the road going to Turbo Granny, she described her ideal guy. Moments later he gets the power from Turbo Granny. I feel like subconsciously that was the last thing on his mind. In reality, the what the love of his life just told him was her type. So subconsciously his powers could have developed based off of what she was saying.
Mm. And then he's even got the silver hair too. That's a big thing
You
there
know what I'm
too.
saying? Like the laid back, everything about him is just her type. And I feel like because you like when he's in that form, she don't really pick on him too much. Like yeah, she yell at him a little bit to do stuff because he be slow, but she don't pick on him like she do when he in his regular form.
Mm. Yeah. And it makes for some, yeah, they team up. She uses her kind of ability. You can see she's got kind of like these extensions of her, like these astral kind of extensions of there where she can make fists and everything like that. It's kind of like what Kamala Khan can do when in besides the comics, instead of just stretching, they gave her like for some reason Green Lantern powers for some reason. It's a little
Don't
bit
get me
like that.
started on Miss Marbles.
So it's kind of like that stuff that she does there. Yeah, and you see that in action. It looks really good in action too. I mean, look at that. That looks
Hmm.
really, really good. Um, so yeah, that's kind of what she can do. She also has like telekinesis too, where she can just move things there. She also has that
Hmm.
there without even doing that, which is very nice. But I'm gonna go around and get you guys' final thoughts and rating for this. So Sage, what would be your final thoughts and rating there for Dandadan?
Yeah, this was it's one I'd heard about a lot too. Before the anime happened, I heard the manga was in the top sales charts, sitting up by stuff like One Piece and JJK and whatnot for a number of maybe a year or two even before this anime was announced. So I had some inkling of it, but I held off on reading it because I wanted to see what they would do with it as an animation production, because I really love Studio Science Saru and their previous work, and I think they knocked it out of the park here. I think they made a really really fun and engaging show. It reminds me of kind of the just no nothing held back kind of craziness of a lot of like late 80s anime stuff, like Bubblegum Crisis and some of the really weird like OVA stuff that was happening in the industry back then. But yeah, I I think I'd give this a peek. I mean, I think I take one big point off just because of some of the like overt gratuitous camera angles they use in the first episode. But honestly, aside from that, I didn't really have any other major issues with it. I think some characters are a little unlikable, but again, I do think that's on purpose. So I think there's a point to it, and there's growth that's going to happen there. This zipped by watching it every week. It feels like it just started and it's already over. Yeah, so I give it a peek. And then I one fun too thing I had pulled up here was the title actually translates to Ghost Tales, Strange Tales, and Recurring Tales. So even though you follow the same main characters through the whole thing, there is almost like a old magazine style anthology element to the creatures they're interacting with. So even though it's not an anthology, it's still kind of homaging to some of those old 80s magazines that were in Japan. I even saw like Hideo Kojima comments while watching the show about how much it reminded him of the magazines he was reading as a kid. And I think that's another just big influence I'm seeing in here.
Okay. John, what about you? Final thoughts and rating for
Mm,
Don to Don.
so cinema is the top one, right?
Yep.
What's right below it?
Peak.
Peak. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, I'm going peak as well. I'm taking a point off for the finale. Sage definitely provided a great explanation on why it probably happened, but still got to take that point off. And I'll take a point five off for the kind of raunchy sexual aspects of it because I agree. The certain times it did get it was a little iffy. Like, hey, yo, like, hold on, because then like even when he beat Turbo Green, biting her like that, it was like, hey, yo, like, hold on. It was a little iffy, but I still overall it was a great project. Definitely in my top three of anime from last year. I'm definitely excited for season two. As soon as the trailer announced and I read a decent amount of it on this little website that I'll be reading manga on, and I was like, okay, I can see where this is going. I like it. And then I watched the Iceberg YouTube video about it before it came out as well. And I was like, okay, I kind of like where this is going. So overall, I feel like Don Don's gonna carry the new gen anime into 2025 for sure. Um, and it coming out in July is gonna be great because it's the middle of the year. So we're gonna have a great ride to the end of the year, no matter what else comes out in between now and July.
Mm, okay. Yeah. And of course, as always, perfectly legal and safe that you read that anime on. Paying, of course, forward there for all the
For
art,
sure, for sure.
all there.
Subscription based.
Yeah. 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 I mean, it has those moments there with the raunchy. I mean, these are high school students, as much what anime is. So that may be a little issue for people there. When they kind of do that with some teenage characters. With that, but that's not majority of the show. It's not in the show a whole lot. They don't linger on that. I don't think too much
Hmm.
on the show. It is in the first episode a little bit and some other episodes, but not a major part of the show. And talked about this before, the trope of anime with the horny characters there. I don't think that's not here at all. So you don't have that kind of going on, unless you want to. Well, actually, maybe the aliens, but they're looking for the banana, but you got that kind of going on.
Hmm.
But yeah,
I think
it's
these aliens might only be on Earth because they got registered as sex offenders from their planet.
yeah, they're just kind of the rogue aliens there.
I
So
hope
like
that
this
that's
is
not what their whole species is like.
the dynamic is that they can't naturally reproduce because they don't have a reproductive organ. So they're on Earth to steal men's reproductive organs so they can reproduce for their race. That's
You
the
know, I just realized as you were saying that that was basically Zack Snyder's version of General Zod in Man of Steel.
So I don't know. I mean, maybe that's a reference there because they do have some American references that they bring in. So they bring in some of that in pop culture. That they bring some stuff like from the opening credits. There, they bring in some of that.
Mhm.
I think one of the aliens. I think people were saying is dressed like Peter Griffin. I think they were saying they bring that.
when yeah
I can
when
kind
they
of see it.
were chasing her by the hot tub stuff. Yeah, he had the white shirt, green pants tucked in with the black belt. But that's also like typical Asian dad wear at the same time. So it's kind of like,
Um,
yeah, I felt like that. It was kind of a reach, but I see it.
Debatable.
Yeah,
Loch Ness Monster is Scottish. So.
right,
mm,
right.
Okay. So yeah, so they threw some references there. The opening. People saying we're comparing it like it's a Rihanna music video. People saying she was dancing like that.
I think there's
And
like a 2 second shot that is that, but I think it's only the 2 seconds.
okay, only the 2 seconds there. But yeah, and even references to other anime there. I think they said that they did that. I mean, I think they said JJK was also referenced there with some with the grandma, and then some stuff she does is very
Um,
much.
the room that's when they find that hole in the wall where all those papers are.
Mhm.
That's the same room that they held UT Itadori in at the beginning of JJK with all that paper that's on the wall is a seal,
Mm.
and that's how
Oh,
you seal curse energy in. Like but I mean, you can say that, but you can't at the same time because talismans are used for curses in
Right, that's
everything.
something common.
So it's kind of like you.
mhm.
It's only because of how the room looks that it seals all over it that make it look like the JJK. But it's like that's another one that's like it's a toss up. Like okay, I see what you're saying, but that until they say it, you can't say if that's true or not.
One reference, and this went over my head actually watching the show, and I had to look it up because I was like, what are they talking about? But there's, I don't know if it's episode 9 or 10, when it's like when Gigi first comes in and him and Ken are kind of fighting a little bit, and they both start singing some song and like bouncing around the living room, and I didn't know what that was supposed to be, but apparently it's the theme song from like a really famous basketball anime from like the 90s. But
Oh,
I
slam dunk.
missed that.
Slam dunk.
Yeah, yeah, it's like the theme song to Slam Dunk. I didn't catch that. I had to look up because I was just confused that whole scene. I've never seen that show.
Oh,
You just now that you said it, I'm locked in on it now. But I didn't like first listening to it. I did not pay attention to the song they were singing at all.
mm, yeah. But yeah, some cool references in there. It's a person that loves the genre, it seems like, of anime and loves operating that genre and enough to know the tropes and know the kind of the different conventions of it and to play around with it. All these kind of, like I said, different things blend together and works really well. The craziness of it in a good way, I think, as most anime can be. Um, and that's really good. So for me, I also would give it a peak there for Don to Don as well there. Do you think Don to Don, you think along with JJK, Chainsaw Man, those are gonna be the new big 3 there, of the new generation of anime there?
I think
Solo leveling.
Chainsaw Man is so weird and kind of like out there in an existential way that I don't know if that one's ever going to be fully mainstream. Like
Mm,
JJK is, that's like a
yeah,
blockbuster, right? Like a big action
yeah.
movie, like a superhero film. But I think,
Hmm.
especially if you read the manga for Chainsaw Man and what they'll adapt in future seasons, I think it gets so weird. It's closer to something like Devilman, where I think it'll inspire a lot of stuff and a lot of other
Hmm.
artists will love it. But I honestly don't think Chainsaw Man will ever have like the mass appeal that some of those other series do.
Hmm.
Mm,
It's the instead of Chainsaw Man, you got to put in Solo leveling. Solo leveling is gonna carry for that new gen big three. Season one peaked out, and now the movie just dropped for the prequel to season two, and then season two just dropped this past Saturday. So like everybody's been going crazy about it. The animation was so crisp, so clean. It's my top anime from last year. So Leveling was definitely my top. And having read forward to like what he becomes, I can't wait to see them animate the powers he has because he's one of those characters that's broken. Like he has abilities that just defy common sense. So like it's just like we're it's gonna be peak and like everybody's gonna love it because he's one of those main characters that's overpowered. Everybody loves the overpowered main character because it's like we just want to see what rule you're gonna break next.
mm. He's gonna level
Mark
up.
my words. Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, mark my words. There hasn't been an anime announced for it yet, but there's a manga that's it's just a little over a year old right now, called Kagurabachi. And when
Mm,
that does get animated, that I think that's going to be what like one of the industry giants. It's already like only a year of publication. It's already won like one of the most prestigious like manga awards in Japan. I've heard
okay.
talk about an anime adaptation, and and it's yeah, trust me, that I've read all of it so far, and that's going to be a huge anime in like 2026 or whenever it happens. It's going to be one of
Right.
those pillar series.
Yeah. Oh, another one. I can't call it new gen, but like another one that's gonna carry for like another year or so. If Bleach ends up animating the Hell arc because of the success of Thousand Year Blood Warrior arc, like if because of how good it's doing, if they decide to animate the next part, Bleach is gonna be on top for probably another 4 years or so, 4 or 5 years maybe, just because of what's in that arc.
Okay. All right. Well, got a peek from Josh, peek from Sage, and a peek from me for dandadan. Streaming now on Netflix there. People can watch the English dub as well there, or they can do the sub there. So both of those were readily available for people um, out the gate there. Yeah,
And if you guys don't know, science after season 2 of dandadan, the next thing Science Stars specifically is going to be doing is a new Ghost in the Shell adaptation for 2026.
very cool. Yeah, so get something to look forward to from Science Saru.